Where We're From highlights the rich textures, histories, and experiences of the Asian, Pacific Islander, and Desi American community. Each episode is produced by students at San Jose State University.
Hi, my name is Jenica.
Hi, my name is Jaron.
My name is Aiden.
My name is Harry.
And my name is Delilah, and we are the Avengers. In today's episode, it is called The Trump Effect. In this episode, we will talk about how we still see racism or racial tension in modern times due to Donald Trump's actions.
Our first question is, how does Trump's rhetoric and role affect the spike in hate crimes?
In my perspective, since Trump's election, anti-Asian slurs have surged by 66%, with South Asian communities bearing the brunt 75% of reported slurs in December. 2024 and 2025 were directed at them, according to Stop AAPI Hate. And I'm Not a Virus, Asian Hate, and Donald Trump's Rhetoric, Jennifer Zhang and Joseph Zampetti acknowledged that anti-Asian rhetoric existed long before Trump's presidency, and that he is not solely to blame for discrimination and violence faced by Asian communities. However, they argue that because of his political influence, social status, and constant media presence, Trump's language and portrayals of Asians have at best legitimized anti-Asian sentiment, and at worst, encouraged outright hatred and hostility.
The president plays a large role in this matter, as Trump is not the only one who plays a role in this. And his impact is one of the biggest due to the amount of weight he has as a president, especially in a society where social media propagates information like a virus. There are many examples like how Trump has used offensive language against Asians as a spokesperson of America, such as the Kung Flu or for COVID, or the hashtag Chinese virus on Twitter, which targeted China, but it also targeted Asians living in America. There are even examples of these slurs used, which are documented in the Stop AAPI Hate websites.
One of the stories from Stop AAPI Hate website has received said that a South Asian man was just eating in a restaurant when a stranger approached him, harassing him and calling him slurs, and mentioned how Trump is president and that he should go back home. This interaction shows that ever since and even immediately after Trump's election and anti-immigrant plans, Trump's followers have felt empowered to harass against Asian Americans in just their daily routine settings, even if they're just minding their own business. This behavior is normalized as they're only copying the actions modeled by their political leader.
So what do you guys think motivates Trump to make racially insensitive remarks? Personal bias, political strategy, or something else?
I think Trump holds a very narrow-minded view of what America should be personally, in my opinion. He seems unwillingly to embrace the country's racial diversity, and instead he just idealizes a version of the U.S. that centers only around white people, because it goes to show how little respect he has for minority groups.
Yeah, and also since he is part of the Republican Party, they do have negative beliefs of immigrants. But this doesn't justify what he's saying at all, and he's taking it too far and just saying blatantly racist stuff.
I think it definitely comes with the fact that he's shielded with his position of power. And I feel that in a way, he has some sort of immunity after all the years that he's had in office.
I think it's more of a political strategy to gather more support from a certain population and to provoke others.
Moving on, we're now going to talk about what the numbers say. How do victims and communities interpret these trends? And how did these hate crimes vary by region? And were certain Asian communities more affected than others? Well, to begin, we see a surge in hate. According to the Stop AAPI Hate website, after Donald Trump was elected, there was data collected which focused on domestic violent extremist spaces, or in the States, between January 2023 and 2025. Specifically, channels such as Reddit, X, and 4chan were focal points. The key findings were that there was a critical increase in online hate against Asian Americans in the U.S., specifically through threats of violence and use of slurs. According to the AAPI website, violent threats increased by a staggering 59% November to December 2024, The number of anti-Asian slurs saw an even steeper rise after the elections, culminating in January 2025. It's alarming that in just 2 months, threats against Asian Americans have increased up to 60%. That's not just a slow rise, it's a dramatic rise. And after the elections, a 66% increase. That may tell us something about how politics and racism are becoming alarmingly intertwined. What do these kinds of data tell us about where hate is headed towards? And how should these platforms, as well as communities, respond before extreme online racism spills itself further into the real world?
Answering Jaron, from the data, it's clear that Donald Trump's presidential victory as a Republican, that many ethnic groups have become more targeted, and one of them being Asians. I definitely believe that the politics and racism are intertwined, like he said earlier. In the article, U.S. hate crimes up 20% in 2016, fueled by election campaign report by NBC, there was an increase of hate crimes by 24% in 2016, which was after Trump won his first election. Then in my research on his victory this year's election, the article Online Hate Against South Asian Americans Rises Steadily, report says, by Kanishka Singh, it said that there was also a spike in white supremacist groups by 41% in 2024, as well as anti-South Asian slurs in extremist online spaces, doubling since 2023.
More data from Stop AAPI Hate showed the number of hate incidents reported to increase from 3,795 to 6,603 reports from just 2020 to 2021. And Cynthia Choi, a co-founder of Stop AAPI Hate, stated that Trump will continue to encourage spreading hate to his followers, but Stop AAPI Hate is ready to fight back by activating AAPI communities to stand united against Trump. Stop AAPI Hate has also recently launched a campaign called Many Roots, One Home for Asian American communities and allies to fight against Trump's anti-immigrant agenda that continues to spread Asian American hate in the U.S. So, moving on to our next talking point, what policies or social interventions could help reduce hate crimes and build solidarity across racial lines?
It's some policies that could be implemented to help reduce the amount of hate crimes being spread, such as having a stronger, more enforced legislation for hate crime laws, as people don't feel worried about the consequences enough to stop themselves. There could also be more funds for mental facilities for those victims of hate crimes themselves, and make them more capable of producing help for them.
I also agree with Carrie. In order to protect Asian Americans and others, there needs to be better hate crime laws because this is a worldwide issue and it needs to be addressed. I also believe that there should be public campaigns against hate, and I think schools should educate students about hate crimes and racial biases. It is also the president who doesn't help the situation and starts the racial slurs against multiple communities.
And building off of Delilah about schools, it's clear that our school system, at least in California, doesn't really teach much about ethnic studies. We only really learn about the bare minimums, such as the Chinese Exclusion Act or the ramping xenophobia in America in history. Personally, I barely learn anything about stuff like the Vietnam War or even Vincent Chin. And our school system should start teaching more about ethnic studies so that people don't have to stay ignorant about other races. Hopefully this teaches kids of the racial inequalities many races had to go through and reduce the hate crimes resulted from racism.
Here are some reflection questions to consider after listening to this podcast. Is there a line between free speech and hate speech, and who gets to draw that line? How have I been shaped by the language and narratives I hear from political leaders or the media? What can I do in my daily life to speak out against racism or support marginalized communities?
Thank you all for listening to The Trump Effect. We hope you listen to our next episode, From Pandemic to Panic, COVID and the Rise in Anti-Asian Racism. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Where We're From. This podcast is produced by students enrolled in Dr. Joanne Rondilla's Asian American Studies courses at San Jose State University.